Ken Kramer's About San Diego, the history and people of the area we call home. Here's Ken Kramer.
So welcome to my front porch. I hope you are healthy and your family and friends likewise. Again, in the future, this may all seem very odd, but just now we're all pretty much housebound. So let me take you away from all of that for a train ride, okay? This is something that is really a terrific experience, and it has history and it's fun. And if you know me in trains, you know I found this to be pretty exciting, and I think you might too. Let's go.
Now announcing the Gold State Limited. All aboard!
Come on along for an adventure here. It's a trip into San Diego history and onto the rails. All aboard, the Golden State Limited, you see, is a full-size train. Randy Hauk is at the controls today.
Understand brakeman has control of the air, clear 15 west. Here we go.
Leaving the station at Campo, his engine begins pushing a couple of train cars with people who've come out here to the desert for a ride that is an absolutely unique experience in San Diego County.
There you go, sir.
Little background, the old Campo train station dates back to 1916 and is now home to what's called the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum. Inside its display building are exhibits that describe how crossing signals work, a classic old railway express mail sorting car, even a steam engine that once served on this very railroad connecting San Diego with El Centro, and that's where the history comes in. Because this track is part of what 100 years ago almost everybody thought was an impossible railroad construction project. Everybody, that is, except this man, John D. Spreckles.
Spreckles sugar fame. Drove the last gold spike to complete the railroad.
Mr. Spreckles, the wealthiest person in San Diego, was undaunted by the engineering obstacles. He built dozens of tunnels and turns. The railroad even jogs into Mexico and back across the border. And when it was done, his San Diego and Arizona Railroad directly to and from the east took 15 hours for a passenger to get from El Centro to San Diego. But then there were floods and fires, and that was just the beginning for the SD&A, Museum President Diana Hyatt says.
The railroad was constantly riddled with problems, so much so that it was often referred to as the slow, dirty, and aggravating.
Passenger service stopped in the 1950s. There haven't been freights go through here in years. But every weekend, the museum takes riders a few miles from Campo down the track toward Mexico.
The portion that we run on is still very nice scenery. This is the upper desert that a lot of people aren't familiar with. That is mountainous, but it's still somewhat desert as well.
It's like going back to the 1930s. The cars rumble and rock, and there's all the sounds of railroading that have been lost to time.
Two more. And hear the clickety-clack of the track. Because most railroads today are welded rails, so you don't have the clickety-clack, that a lot of the kids' books talk about.
A short distance from the border, the train stops.
We're going to reverse direction, and we'll be heading east back to the Campo Depot.
Now the engine, a relic of the 1960s Southern Pacific, is in front. Its whistle is a sweet musical accompaniment to the passing desert countryside. An old baggage car from 70 years ago has doors open to the wind and the sound. And a little bonus today, we'll go past the depot and a bit beyond. Our ride extended, the history everywhere, the scenery stark and pretty. And finally, one more push back toward the depot. It's a wonderful thing, this museum. All volunteers who serve as crew, maintain the track, everything. Diana, who's come here almost every weekend for 17 years, says she still feels this little train through the desert is the best kept secret in San Diego.
And there's still people who've lived here 30, 40 years that haven't heard about us.
So hear this. A little section of John D. Spreckle's Impossible Railroad lives even yet on a train that every weekend goes back and forth a few miles around Campo. It's a fun ride and a lesson in history about San Diego.